Welcome back to the First Impact channel. This is David, and today we are going to be discussing the new CGI animated film by Toho Studios, and it is the newest Godzilla film, and it is called Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. So, let me get this out of the way right now. This was not great. I don't completely hate this movie, but it does not bode well for the rest of what this is trying to do. This is supposed to be a film in a three-part trilogy, and I don't think it has a lot of legs to stand on. That's kind of unfortunate. This is the first, I think, official film released by Toho Animation about Godzilla, and it's a tragic misstep. Let's just jump right into what's going on with this movie then. So, this movie is, first of all, ugly. I mean, just immensely ugly. Now, that is not to say that it is not worked on by talented people. It is definitely worked on by talented people. You can definitely see some of the painstaking work that went into some of these designs, just some of the artwork in general, the drawing, but none of it matches anything in this show, in my opinion. All of the models seem like they're from different companies, and that could just be me being biased and taking a guess as to how this is animated, because that is how the anime industry and animation industry has worked for a really long time. You just outsource a lot of animation. Traditional anime does this a lot with Korean studios and different things like that. So we've got that kind of that little idea planted into my mind as soon as I'm seeing these major uncanny differences in art style, and that was a really huge problem for me. I mean, this is Godzilla, guys. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore Godzilla, but I need the visuals to be here, and I know that a lot of the old films are hokey to a lot of people, but they're very special to me. I really appreciate the special effects from the series and just everything that it did as an innovator in the genre over in Japan. So now that I've gotten this out of the way of it being pretty ugly and just not matching, and I'll touch more on that later to get a little more specific, but I just kind of wanted to go down my little list of what's going wrong and what's going right. So there is a really interesting reincorporation of some old kind of mythos from the original series. Well, you know, about as much as they're all connected, but we have seen a lot of really interesting stuff going on with some of the lore. So as you may remember from past Godzilla films, there are different people from different planets. If you're an English fan, you may remember people from Planet X and, you know, different things like that. So they are humanoid looking, and we've seen humanoid aliens before in Godzilla films. So that's nothing new, but it's cool that they've reincorporated this here. So this film takes place quite a bit into the future. It doesn't really say if it's connected to anything else Godzilla related, like past wise. We do get some really interesting ideas though. So there's an entire group of humans who have either been to Earth before, but some of them are from different planets, or they may have met up in space. We don't really know. They didn't really explain that very well. But there are different quote-unquote like sub-races and groups amongst the humans, and this is really interesting to me because we see more of a bigger scale for kaiju here. One of the priests in the movie, and I don't think this is a spoiler at all, but and yes, there are priests, there's a religious aspect going on, but he makes the comment that every world that has humans or humanoid type creatures on it that he's encountered, they seem to run into these divine beasts, if you will, something like Godzilla or a kaiju, and it seems to be what is always their downfall as a civilization. So that is a really interesting concept to me. I like where they're going with that. I'd like to see more of where they're going with that, but we don't really know. So that brings me to my point about the priest and things. What is going on there? I don't really know. I think it's kind of strange and ham-fisted that they're kind of trying to throw this whole like importance of the priest and the priesthood, and it seems like they have almost a higher up political kind of role, which I mean really they do in real life as well. But I don't know, it seems like they're really trying to emphasize that, but they're not really giving us much information on it. My guess is that amongst these surviving humans that are kind of out in space in these little floating spaceships, kind of trying to escape the Earth after Godzilla's basically wiped them all out and forced them off the planet, it's just kind of strange to me that there's a weird hierarchy like that, but I guess it's kind of natural and I get the point. but kind of I don't see where they're going with it or what they're trying to really derive from it, other than someone having a position of power to act as a MacGuffin to push the story. But I'm not going to push too far into that kind of spoiler territory or anything, not that it matters. But yeah, kind of weird, kind of convoluted. Like, I don't really know why they're trying to push such a huge amount of different ideas when Godzilla can kind of be kept, like, it's a deep concept if you want to push it to be that way. But on the surface, there are a few things that a lot of fans really want. We want some simplicity here while telling a story that has a meaning to it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge expositional dump like this movie is. And that's really, really surprising to me, because I recently found out who the writer was, and it is Gen Urobuchi. And I love Gen Urobuchi. Like, he has done Madoka Magica. He has done a multitude of different anime that you may not even know. Like, you may attribute a lot of writing to a certain figure in a lot of anime that you like that's a bit more modern. But odds are Gen Urobuchi's probably had his hand in there somewhere at some point. So he's done a lot of great shows, a lot of interesting writing. He has this bad habit of leaving shows and walking away from productions halfway through or after a season, but he'll probably do that here too, just because it probably won't push to where he'd like it to be. So, leaving some of the story aspects aside, and I'll touch a little bit more about some of the convoluted sides of that, the audio is good. It's solid. The voice acting on both parts, at least for the two audio tracks that I listened to, which were English and Japanese, it seems about, I think there's 4 or 5. I think there's like French and Spanish, maybe German, which is really awesome that Toho is pushing out this far and is really trying to make Godzilla an international figure more so than he is now. I mean, I think Godzilla has some decent representation across the world, but it seems like Toho's really trying to globally push him, and I hope that they do, because I need them to take it away from the Americans, and I need them to not let Americans push their idea of Godzilla as much as theirs. That's what's kind of freaking me out. Like, you know, you may like the newest American Godzilla film. It's fine. It's okay. But I'd rather not see an Americanized Godzilla become his image worldwide. That's just kind of a problem for me personally. And it kind of takes away from some of the weird of Godzilla, which is what makes it fun for me, a lot of it at least. So it's good that we're getting an international push here, and the audio is really good. The actors are committed, and I'm fine with that. As I said, the writing isn't necessarily helping the actors a whole lot, but that's okay. They're definitely trying, and they're doing well. So my only issue, I guess, with some of the audio is that the quality is all good. The music is hit or miss. None of it's bad music. It's all very well composed. It just feels sort of run-of-the-mill sometimes. I don't really get a lot of good music going on through this that really lends itself to the scene. Sometimes it feels kind of random. I think a lot of the action beats are covered well. Some of the emotional stuff, or even just the slice of lifey kind of stuff, it doesn't really fit too well. But it's not bad. It's not a terrible mark on the film, but it's definitely not going to ruin it for you if you like everything else. So that is fine. I really like that they are kind of building the world a little bit. There's a lot of little small expositional dumps, and some of that are done well. Some of them are just like, here's an idea, and they're just shoving it in your mouth like a buffet. But I really like the way that they are doing some of that. It's cool that you see little mentions and hints of the previous mythos like we talked about. There's even a showing of like a small cityscape being kind of destroyed by Hedorah, which is just fantastic, because Hedorah does not get enough love, and let's face it, it's probably one of the weirdest Godzilla movies out there, like even in English. So yeah, nobody wants to see those weird dolphin head scenes anymore. So that's cool that we see some of that. The pacing is really weird in this movie. The pacing is all over the place. I really like a lot of the slowed down parts where it's really sci-fi feeling, and they're really trying to kind of throw a lot of the sci-fi jargon to you in their own way, and kind of using concepts and ideas that have been touched on in Godzilla and other sci-fi beforehand. So it feels like if you're a sci-fi veteran, you kind of walk into a movie where you're like, I get all this, but you know, you really don't, because it's nonsense. But it makes sense. So I really like how it's trying to be, it's got a 60s sci-fi vibe going on in some of the writing, and that's really fun for me. But when it gets these weird parts where it's trying to be emotional, or it's trying to kind of even kind of chill out and be a little less serious, it does not take it very well. And then it seems like it forces itself into a corner where it's just dragging so many times, and even when the action picks up, you're not really that excited about it. So it's not really that great. They're fighting Godzilla at certain points after they flashbacked on fighting Godzilla, and it just is kind of not all that entertaining. I like that they tried to push some of it in the flashbacks as an emotional thing, but it just didn't feel very rewarding or like it was going to amount to much of anything when they come back and try to fight him again. I like some of the idea of them trying to use these little like hover bikes and some of their own technology to disrupt Godzilla, and I like the idea of them being smart and using scientists and people that are in their military that are more strategic and trying to think of a way to actually stop Godzilla or kill him. That's kind of cool. I mean, I kind of like the human aspect of this. Again, it does feel like you're watching the Japanese Defense Force like kind of fight them from the old movies, but it's just not, it's not the most exciting thing. Some of the animation is just ugly. I mean, I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but some of it's pretty rough. So this movie, it's not looking good for whatever these other two films are going to be. It's just really hit or miss as a fan, and I mean, as a fan, I know that you're probably going to check it out, but if you're really on the fence on this one, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you to pass. It's not an awful film. It's just not good, and it doesn't really seem like it's really worth a Godzilla fan's time. Just the design is so ugly. I mean, a lot of the aspects of it are just not great. So really proceed with caution on this one. I think that I will stick around and maybe try to check out the last two and just give you guys my opinion on it. If you're interested in that, go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know how you felt about the film, and let me know if I should do some more. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what's going on with this trilogy from what I know. So there is some information that was released by Toho, and there are some really rough translations of the film titles, and I don't necessarily want to butcher their Japanese names. But the second film is supposed to be called Battle Mobile Breeding City to Godzilla, which I guess I really hate the concept of the whole let's have baby Godzillas. I'm so sick of that. But we'll see where they go with it, because it seems like they're trying to push for the whole let's redevelop the Earth and try something new with the kaiju, so it could go somewhere. The last film is supposed to be called The City Mechanized for the Final Battle, and these are both supposed to come out this year, it seems. So this film is going to include Godzilla. Whether it's the Kiryu Godzilla or Mechagodzilla or what, who knows. They did actually mention him and reference him in this film, but you see him for 2 seconds and they're unable to activate him to fight Godzilla, which apparently they think is going to beat Godzilla. So that's probably a little bit of a lofty aspiration, as is their survival, but we'll see where this franchise goes. I don't really know. I'm not really hanging my hat on it, so if it's bad, it's bad, whatever. I just hate for this to be Godzilla's first major animated outing as a film and it not being so great, but you know, that's what we get. Toho will probably figure something out and maybe go in a more traditional anime style at some point. Not really the biggest fan of some of the CGI stuff, but it is not the worst thing in the world, guys, and we might see some really cool monsters coming in the future. I mean, we've got Hedorah being shown a little bit, although my only worry is that he'll look as ugly as this supposed Godzilla in this movie. So that's my thoughts on it for now. Very brief review, guys. Let me know how you feel about it, and if you'd like me to do more, let me know. Look out for the next review that I'll be doing, which will likely be Shin Gojira, and I will see you guys in the next one.